Trust is a delicate thing. We spend years building it, brick by brick, only to discover that the mortar holding it together was nothing more than dust. For 8 years, I lived inside a comfortable illusion. I believed I knew Lisa. I believed our suburban life with Emma and Ben was the destination we had worked so hard to reach. But sometimes you don't realize the ground beneath you is shifting until the entire house is already collapsing around you. It didn't begin with a scream. It began with a whisper on a Tuesday evening. We were lying in bed, the pale blue glow of our phones casting light across the growing distance between us. Lisa turned toward me, her eyes carrying a restless hunger I barely recognized. She brought up Mark and Jenna, the neighbors who always seemed a little too perfect, a little too polished. They had invited us to a party, she explained, not a dinner gathering, not a neighborhood cookout, a swingers party. I laughed, waiting for the joke, but her expression never changed. She called our marriage a rut. She called me close-minded. She spoke about exploration as though our relationship were a map she had grown tired of studying. I told her no. I told her it was madness. I told her that marriage isn't a hobby you replace when the seasons change. But emotionally, Lisa had already left the room. Her body was simply waiting to catch up. By Thursday, the request had transformed into an ultimatum. She was going with or without me. The defiance in her voice felt heavy enough to crush the air around us. In that moment, I realized the woman I married was gone. Standing before me was a stranger willing to trade years of history for a single evening of novelty. Then she went even further. With breathtaking arrogance, she suggested recording it. "To show you it's not a big deal," she said. "Maybe it'll even turn you on." That was the moment everything changed. That was when the husband in me died and the strategist took control. I stopped arguing. I let silence do what words no longer could. I told her to go. I told her to record everything. On Saturday night, I watched her get ready in a dress designed to attract attention she once reserved for me. When she left, I immediately took the children to my mother's house. I wasn't going to let them stand anywhere near the blast radius. The next morning, she returned carrying the scent of expensive perfume and terrible decisions. She handed me her phone like a trophy. I took it into my office, locked the door, and began the digital autopsy of our marriage. Every file I transferred felt like another nail being driven into a coffin. The videos were worse than I expected, not because of what happened in them, but because of the joy she seemed to feel. There was no hesitation, no remorse, no trace of guilt. It was as if our entire life together had been erased. I copied every file, every second, every frame. When I finally walked out of that office, I was no longer the same man. The divorce that followed was a surgical operation. My attorney told me he had never seen evidence packaged so neatly and delivered so willingly by the very person responsible. Lisa believed she was being modern. What she failed to realize was that she had become her own executioner. She lost the house. She lost the children. She lost the life she believed she could place on pause and return to whenever she wanted. But the real twist came months later in the middle of a grocery store aisle. Mark, the neighbor, couldn't even meet my eyes. He told me things the videos never captured. The recordings were only the highlight reel. Reality had been much worse. There hadn't been one man, there had been three. I stood there holding a carton of milk, realizing that every time I thought I had reached the bottom of her betrayal, another floor seemed to appear beneath me. Today, I am free, but the silence in my new apartment serves as a constant reminder of how quickly a life can be dismantled when one person decides temporary excitement is worth more than forever. The legal battle felt less like a fight and more like a cleanup operation. My lawyer, a man who had witnessed the darkest sides of human nature, sat in his leather chair and reviewed the evidence with a grim expression. He told me that in 20 years of practice, He had never seen someone provide proof against themselves with such enthusiasm. We barely had to argue for full custody. The judge reviewed the evidence of Lisa's complete abandonment of her responsibilities and her willingness to involve recordings in such behavior. The decision came down with the finality of a falling blade. Lisa tried to protest. She claimed it was a trap. She argued that I had encouraged her. But the law doesn't concern itself with the encouragement of a broken heart. It concerns itself with facts. She moved into a small studio apartment on the edge of town, the kind of place where the walls feel thin and disappointment lingers in the air. I kept the house for a while, but the shadows inside it became too long. Every room carried a memory that had been poisoned. I remembered how sunlight used to spill across the kitchen table during breakfast and how Lisa would laugh at Emma's drawings. Now, whenever I looked at those same places, all I could see was the ghost of the woman who walked out the door in a black dress, searching for herself in someone else's bed. I sold the house last month. I packed the children's toys, gathered what remained of my pride, and moved closer to the city. My mother helps with the kids. They're doing better than I expected. Children are resilient in ways adults rarely understand. They don't know the details, and I pray they never will. To them, Mom simply left to live a different life. But sometimes I catch Ben staring at his phone with a certain suspicion in his eyes, and it breaks my heart to think I may have passed down my weariness. As for Mark, he's still around. Like I said, he looked exhausted, older, defeated. He told me Jenna left him too. Apparently, the party wasn't the marriage-saving adventure they imagined it would be. It was merely a catalyst for the decay that already existed beneath the surface. He apologized. I didn't want his apology. I wanted my 8 years back. I wanted the version of Lisa I thought was real. But time cannot be purchased, and foundations built on sand cannot be repaired. I'm building something new now. It's smaller, it's quieter, it's lonelier, but it's real. There are no secrets hidden within these walls, no recordings waiting to be discovered, just the distant sounds of the city and the steady breathing of my children sleeping in the next room. In the end, that has to be enough. Sometimes I wonder if Lisa ever watches those videos alone in that small apartment. I wonder if she sees the exact moment she lost everything and questions whether it was worth it. Or maybe she's already searching for the next party, the next neighbor, the next fleeting thrill that makes her feel alive at someone else's expense. I don't care enough to know. I've erased those files from my mind, even if copies still sit locked away in my lawyer's safe. I'm finished being the cameraman of my own tragedy. Now, I'm simply a father trying to ensure his children grow up understanding that love is not a game and trust is not something you sacrifice for the sake of temporary excitement.